Taiwan, a lush green island off the coast of mainland China, has a captivating history stretching back millennia. Long before the arrival of European explorers or Chinese settlers, the island was home to indigenous tribes. These Austronesian peoples, ancestors to many Polynesian cultures, thrived in Taiwan's fertile lands and rich coastal waters. They developed their own unique customs, languages and traditions, leaving an indelible mark on the island's cultural tapestry. Archaeological evidence points to sophisticated societies with skilled artisans and intricate social structures. These early inhabitants remain a vital part of Taiwan's identity, their legacy woven into the fabric of modern Taiwanese life. For centuries, these indigenous communities lived in relative isolation, their existence unknown to the wider world. The island remained shrouded in mystery, its verdant mountains and pristine beaches untouched by outside influence. This period of peaceful isolation allowed for the flourishing of diverse cultures, each with its own unique relationship to the land and sea. However, the winds of change were soon to blow across the Taiwan Strait, bringing with them new challenges and opportunities that would forever alter the course of the island's history. The arrival of traders from Southeast Asia marked the beginning of Taiwan's interaction with the outside world. These early exchanges introduced new goods and ideas, gradually weaving the island into a wider network of trade and cultural exchange. Yet it was the arrival of European powers in the 17th century that truly thrust Taiwan onto the global stage, marking the beginning of a new chapter in its history. The 17th century marked the dawn of a new era for Taiwan as European powers, eager to exploit the burgeoning trade routes of East Asia, turned their attention to the island. The Dutch, seeking a strategic outpost for their expanding commercial empire, established a foothold in southern Taiwan in 1624. They built Fort Zeelandia, a formidable fortress that served as the center of their colonial administration and a hub for trade with China and Japan. The Dutch East India Company, a powerful trading entity, governed the island with an iron fist, extracting resources and profits for the benefit of their shareholders back in Europe. However, the Dutch were not alone in their ambitions. The Spanish, eager to challenge their European rivals and expand their own colonial possessions, established a presence in northern Taiwan in 1626. They constructed Fort Santo Domingo in Tam Sui, a strategic port city, hoping to establish their own sphere of influence on the island. For several decades, Taiwan became a battleground for European rivalry as the Dutch and Spanish vied for control of this strategic outpost in the Far East. This period of colonial rule brought about significant changes to Taiwanese society. The introduction of new crops like sugarcane and the influx of Chinese laborers to work the land transformed the island's economy and demographics. The Dutch, in particular, encouraged Han Chinese migration to Taiwan, seeking a reliable workforce for their agricultural enterprises. This influx of Chinese settlers, fleeing poverty and unrest on the mainland, would have a profound impact on Taiwan's cultural and linguistic landscape. Despite their efforts, both the Dutch and Spanish colonial ventures ultimately proved short-lived. The Dutch faced persistent resistance from indigenous communities and were eventually expelled from the island in 1662 by a Chinese Ming loyalist fleet led by Koxinga. The Spanish, facing similar challenges, withdrew from their northern outpost in 1642. Although their presence on the island was relatively brief, the European colonial period left a lasting legacy on Taiwan, introducing new agricultural practices, trade networks, and cultural influences that would shape its development in the centuries to come. The mid-17th century marked a turning point in Taiwan's history, as the island shifted from European colonial rule to becoming more deeply intertwined with mainland China. Following the collapse of the Ming dynasty and the rise of the Manchu-led Qing dynasty, a Ming loyalist leader named Koxinga sought refuge on Taiwan. Koxinga, also known as Zheng Chenggong, expelled the Dutch and established the Kingdom of Tungning, marking the first time a Chinese regime governed the entire island. Koxinga's rule was short-lived, as the Qing dynasty ultimately asserted its authority over Taiwan in 1683. This marked the beginning of over 2 centuries of Qing rule. a period that witnessed significant transformations in Taiwanese society. Large-scale migration from mainland China, particularly from the nearby provinces of Fujian and Guangdong, dramatically altered the island's demographics. These migrants, primarily Han Chinese seeking new opportunities and escaping hardship on the mainland, brought with them their customs, languages, and beliefs. The influx of Chinese settlers led to the spread of Han Chinese culture and the gradual marginalization of indigenous communities. The Qing government, eager to solidify its control over the island, implemented policies aimed at integrating Taiwan into the imperial fold. Chinese administrative systems were introduced, and Mandarin Chinese was promoted as the official language. This period witnessed the emergence of a distinct Taiwanese identity, blending elements of indigenous traditions with the cultural influences brought by waves of Chinese migrants. However, Qing rule was not without its challenges. The island was plagued by sporadic uprisings, often fueled by resentment towards corrupt officials and economic disparities. Despite these challenges, Taiwan underwent significant development during this era. Agricultural production increased, fueled by the introduction of new crops and farming techniques. Trade flourished, with Taiwan becoming an important link in the maritime trade routes of East Asia. This period laid the foundation for Taiwan's future economic growth and its emergence as a significant player in the region. In 1895, a new chapter unfolded in Taiwan's tumultuous history as the island transitioned from Chinese rule to Japanese colonization. This dramatic shift resulted from the First Sino-Japanese War, a conflict that ended in a humiliating defeat for China and the cession of Taiwan to Japan. The island, coveted for its strategic location and agricultural potential, became Japan's first colony, marking the beginning of a 50-year period of profound transformation. The Japanese embarked on an ambitious project to modernize Taiwan, seeking to transform it into a model colony, showcasing the might of the Japanese Empire. They invested heavily in infrastructure, building railways, ports, and communication networks that connected the island like never before. The Japanese also introduced modern education and healthcare systems, aiming to improve the lives of the Taiwanese people and solidify their control over the island. However, Japanese rule was far from benevolent. The colonial administration imposed strict social controls, suppressing local customs and promoting Japanese language and culture. The indigenous population, already marginalized under Qing rule, faced further discrimination and displacement as their lands were confiscated for Japanese businesses and settlers. This period witnessed the erosion of traditional Taiwanese culture and the imposition of a Japanese identity, a policy met with resistance and resentment by many. Despite the hardships endured under Japanese rule, Taiwan underwent significant economic development during this era. The Japanese modernized the island's agricultural sector, introducing new crops like rice and sugar that were exported to fuel Japan's growing economy. They also developed Taiwan's industrial base, establishing factories that produced goods for the Japanese market. This period of rapid industrialization and economic growth laid the foundation for Taiwan's future economic miracle, but it came at a cost for many who endured forced labor and exploitation under the colonial regime. The outbreak of World War II in 1939 cast a long shadow over Taiwan, drawing the island further into the maelstrom of global conflict. Japan, allied with Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy, played a key role in the Pacific War, and Taiwan, as a strategically vital colony, became deeply entangled in the conflict. The Japanese transformed the island into a forward base for their military operations in Southeast Asia and the Pacific, constructing airfields, naval bases, and fortifications. Taiwanese people became increasingly caught in the crosshairs of war. Young men were conscripted into the Japanese military, forced to fight for a colonial power that had subjected their homeland to decades of oppressive rule. Others were drafted into forced labor, toiling in factories and shipyards that supported the Japanese war effort. The island's resources were diverted to feed the insatiable demands of the Japanese war machine, leading to shortages and hardships for many Taiwanese. As the war progressed, Taiwan became a target for Allied bombing raids. American aircraft targeted key industrial and military installations, seeking to cripple Japan's ability to wage war. The cities of Taipei, Kaohsiung and Hsinchu suffered significant damage, with civilian casualties adding to the growing toll of the conflict. The experience of war left an indelible mark on the Taiwanese psyche, highlighting the island's vulnerability to global forces and the human cost of conflict. The end of World War II in 1945 brought an end to Japanese colonial rule in Taiwan, but it also marked the beginning of a new period of uncertainty and upheaval. The island, scarred by war and eager to chart its own course, found itself caught in the throes of a new struggle, this time between two competing visions for China's future.